You may think it's all about wills and estates. There's a lot more to it. You'll find out more with this morning's guest, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on the probate court, and we're visiting with Judge Deirdre Edmonds, Horry County's probate judge. Good morning, Judge Edmonds.
Hi, Greg.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Do you mind if I call you Deirdre?
No, please do.
That's a great name. Is that a family name?
Well, it is now because I named my daughter Deirdre.
Aha, yeah.
But before that, it was not a family name.
You don't know where it came. Did you ever talk to your folks about that?
Well, you know, my mom says she found it in a book she was reading, so that's kind of where she came up with it.
That's exciting. Did you grow up in the area?
No, I grew up in Aiken County. I'm originally from Aiken County, and I lived there until I graduated from high school, and then went off to college, and then right after law school, I moved down to the beach. So I've been here since 1987, I believe.
Is that right? Where did you go to college?
University of South Carolina.
So you've been and then I think I saw you attended law school there as well.
I did. Yes, I did.
Have you ever left the Palmetto State?
Well, actually, I did when I was in college. I dropped out of college for a year to take a break, and I moved to Florida. And I lived down there in Destin, Florida for a few months, kind of enjoying myself. So other than that, though, I've lived in South Carolina all my life.
Yeah. God, what was that time like in Florida? Now that's the only time you spent away. Yeah,
it was poverty-stricken.
Yeah.
But it was fun. You know, it was a lot of fun to kind of get away. And I decided after a few months that I wanted to come back and go back to school.
Right.
And so I came back. I was out of school for about a year. And then I went back and graduated.
Do you still have family in Aiken?
All of my family, except my husband and my children. Both my husband's family and my family live in the Aiken area.
Is
so
that
everybody
right?
is back in Aiken County.
Wow. Do y'all get back there often? I assume if y'all live in Horry County, they like to come down here.
Well, they do. They enjoy coming. But most of the holidays we go back to Aiken because that's where everybody is. And, you know, other times throughout the year we'll go back and visit. We vacation there and go camping outside of Aiken County with our family. So we go back there a good bit.
Is that right? Now, you say we. I think you said, or I saw that you have, is it 3 girls?
3 little girls.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Stressful, demanding, blessing. You know, it's just wonderful. We have a good time with our girls.
I probably should say, what's that like for your husband since he is so outnumbered 4 to 1?
Well, he swears we're going to build a new bathroom and he's going to put a padlock on it.
Yeah,
you know, for himself,
That's
nobody
right.
else.
No
But
one else.
he enjoys it a lot. He really does.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good dad and good husband, and we just spend a lot of time with our girls.
You're able to spend a good bit of time with him. Obviously, as the probate court judge or probate judge, you're pretty dang busy.
We're very busy in the probate court, but I'm able to spend, you know, all day there. I spend all day there, and I take home work at night after my girls go to bed because they're young. They go to bed early, and I do some work there. But evenings and weekends, you know, I'm able to come home just like a regular 9-to-5 job.
Right, sure.
So,
what are your girls' ages?
Well, I have twins that are 8 years old.
Really?
And then I have a 6-year-old. So 3rd grade and 1st grade.
Yeah, so they're at critical ages. So
yes,
you're past the terrible twos.
Got through all of that.
Yeah, with twins, you had quadruple terrible twos.
Yeah. And then when the last one came along, she was just a breeze. You know, so it's worked out well.
Yeah.
We enjoy it.
That's great.
They're good girls. They really are.
You know, of course, there's probably a long time before they, you know, when you think about the probate court, you think about, I guess most folks will think about words like wills and estates. I mean, the probate court oversees a heck of a lot more than that. We sure want to talk about that, but I was about to say it'll be a long time before your girls ever have anything to do with the probate court. But it's interesting as we think about guardianship and other things that flow through the probate court. There's probably a heck of a lot that folks don't know.
That's right. I mean, we do a lot in the probate court. Most people do think about probate and they think about estates and wills, but we also handle commitment procedures for people that are dependent on alcohol or drugs. We do commitment procedures for mental health, and we also handle the guardianships and the conservatorships, so that those are procedures that happen before a person passes away. If a person becomes incapacitated or incompetent, we issue marriage licenses, and we're the custodian of all the marriage licenses for the county.
Is that
so
right?
Every county issues through the probate court marriage licenses. We deal with trust and powers of attorney and things of that nature. So we've got a fair amount of jurisdiction, but it is all related jurisdiction. We don't do any domestic actions. We don't really do any criminal actions or things like that.
Right.
But it's a little bit broader than what some people may think.
Sure. When folks hear that probate word, that probably either conjures thoughts like that, trust in estates, but what are some of the other, I mean, where did that word come from? Why isn't it called something? I mean, what else could it be called?
Well, I don't know what else it might be called, quite frankly, but the process of probating
Right.
is an administration that you go through with a person's estate. And when we say probate, we mean to actually take a person's last will and testament and make a determination as to whether that's their valid will.
Okay.
And that's what we say when we probate a will.
Okay.
A person can die without a will, and we call that intestate, but their estate still goes through an administration. And we call that probate administration, even though there is not really a last will and testament. The property is distributed in accordance with our state laws. So the probate administration is a detailed process that we go through, and the probate court sort of oversees that, and it depends on whether a person has a will or not. And that's what probate means when we probate a person's will.
Okay, sure. Good. I'm glad you said that. How long does it normally take to probate an estate or to go through that action? Does it depend on the estate itself?
Well, it's going to depend on the value of the estate, how much property is in the estate, the different types of property that may be in a person's estate, but it's also going to depend on who is to receive that estate. In South Carolina, we have several different probate procedures. We can have something as simple as a person passing away and owning an automobile or owning a checking account, and maybe that's all. And that's a relatively very simple process to get that property to the rightful owners. Or you can have an estate that may be a large estate with a lot of different assets. It's going to be a taxable estate maybe, and it may take a couple of years to go through the probate administration. A typical estate may take 3 or 4 months if everything is going to a single individual and they're in charge of the estate, or it may take as much as a year. That's kind of the guideline, is usually a year. We have in South Carolina an 8-month creditor's claim period. So in most of your estates, you're not going to distribute out any property or convey any property out of the deceased person's name until that creditor's claim period has expired, which is usually 8 months.
Okay. Now, are there ever external forces that come in from outside of the county that put pressure on you or your office to speed things along? Are there ever instances, I've heard about there's an estate open in Durham that I know that's been open since the woman passed away in 1992. That's still open because there's a multitude of assets going to multiple charitable institutions.
Right. There are outside forces that have an effect on what goes on in probate and how quickly we can do things. I think the one that affects the court the most would be the heirs of the estate, the beneficiaries under the will. They seem to think that a personal representative, as soon as they get the estate open, they can start distributing property. And I spoke a moment ago about the creditor's claim period.
Right.
And generally, a personal representative is not going to distribute the estate. But oftentimes you will have other interests, such as if a person receiving property wants to do something with that property, they want to refinance the property, they want to distribute the property, they want to sell the property, they will often put pressure on the probate court.
Right.
But it seems like that there are outside forces that we don't have control over that delay the probate administration a lot also. For instance, if a person is involved in an accident and that results in a death, and we're dealing with that deceased person's estate, they may be tied up in some litigation in another court regarding the wrongful death of that deceased person.
Right.
And that may delay the probate administration. If you have a taxable estate, then that will delay the probate administration because they've got to deal with the IRS and file the estate tax returns and do those types of things.
Right.
Sometimes you will have a person's estate and you're working on their estate, and then an heir of that estate will actually pass away. And so then you've got to wait on that estate to be properly commenced and started so that you can deal with the representative of that heir's estate. So there are a lot of outside factors that will have an effect on the probate court and how quickly we can handle an estate in our probate court.
That's a great point. You lay out an example like that. The beneficiary of one estate could possibly pass away, so those funds would have to flow into his or her estate such that they could be passed along to...
That's right.
And of course, as the dollar sums oftentimes get larger, potentially the length is prolonged because, as you say, it becomes a taxable estate.
It does. I had a hearing today on an estate that is a taxable estate. It was a pretty good sized estate, but the estate is now involved in an IRS audit. So the IRS is auditing the estate tax return, and we certainly cannot close out the estate, or they're not going to distribute any assets until the IRS audit is complete.
Wow.
And that has been going on for some time. So there are outside forces that really that the probate court has no effect on directly, such that we cannot do anything. We're kind of at a standstill as well in the probate court.
Do y'all have an open door policy of a sort? Do you want viewers or folks in the county to learn more about the probate court? Is there
Absolutely.
a desire?
There is, and I think one of the main reasons I would like people to understand probate better, wills better, powers of attorney better, healthcare powers of attorney, and living wills and things like that, is some of the things that we do in the probate court. People can work to try to eliminate the probate court's involvement in their life, in their estate, in their financial affairs, by taking steps themselves while they're confident, while they're living, to make the arrangements so that we can reduce the probate. One of the things that I've been doing since I became probate judge is I write a monthly column that appears in a local monthly periodical that's passed out throughout the Grand Strand. And the purpose of doing that is to try to educate people about what probate is about why they need a will. You know, so many people die without a will, about why they need a power of attorney, why they need a health care power of attorney. Because I know if they don't have some of these things, or that they're not set up properly, or that if they draft their own will, for instance, we see that a lot, it's going to create more problems for their family when they have to come to the probate court. So there's a need for people to have a better understanding and to prepare for probate and try to avoid probate as much as they can, because there are things that people can do to reduce the amount of probate that their family might have to go through.
Okay. Now, would all the counties be the same in South Carolina? Obviously, you know the bulk of our viewers are in the PD. Heck of a lot of our viewers are in southeastern North Carolina. So I don't know if you're familiar with North Carolina, the 100 counties up there, or just the 46 counties here.
Mostly South Carolina law.
Sure.
In South Carolina, we have what's called the Uniform Probate Code, and it was adopted by our legislature in July of 1987, and we have been acting under that probate code. And it is applicable to the entire state, but every county has a publicly elected probate judge, and so there's a lot in that probate code that's subject to interpretation. So even though we're all subject to this probate code, what we do in Horry County, if there's not a clear guideline in the code, we may require something a little bit different than what may be required in Georgetown or Florence or Richland or Greenville or one of these other counties. But for the most part, the law is the same. It's just subject to some interpretation by the individual judge.
And the interpretation can be reviewed by whom? I mean, who could someone appeal? If someone was concerned about your interpretation, not that it would ever happen, but if an estate or an heir was concerned about something that you'd written about.
Well, there are a couple different things that a person can do. If there's an actual order issued by the probate court and a person is not happy with the order, they feel like it was a wrong decision by the judge, then they can appeal that. Right now, an appeal from the probate court goes to the circuit court. There is a bill that's pending in the legislature now to have that go directly to the Court of Appeals. But right now it goes to the circuit court, and then once the circuit court judge rules on it, if it's appealed from there, it would then go to the Court of Appeals. There's also an administration division of what we call court administration, and they oversee all the court system, the entire judicial system in the state. And that is in Columbia. And a person can contact court administration for information or to file a complaint if necessary. And there's also the Judicial Ethics Advisory Board and a Commission on Judicial Ethics that a person could voice a complaint to if there was a complaint. And we have an open door policy in the probate court as well. I mean, we sit down with people often, whether it be through an attorney or individually, and try to explain why we do something or why they're required to do something. So much of what is required in the probate court through an administration of an estate or guardianship or conservatorship or even a commitment procedure is set forth in our code of laws. And to the best of our ability, we certainly try to follow that in what we require people to do in the probate court.
Good. What are some ways that viewers could learn more if they weren't reading the column that you're doing on a monthly basis in some area publication? What are some of the ways they could learn more about the probate court and some of those basic ideas? Is there a good phone number, an informational phone number to call, or visiting the Horry County website? Is that...
Well, we do have a website that is www.probatecourthcg.com. So we have some information on our website. One thing that we were able to do last year is we put all of the probate forms on the website. So instead of people having to come to the court and pick up the forms, or we mail forms out, they can now access all of the forms on our website. And they can print those off. They can actually fill them out on screen if they want to and then print them. So they can get the information there. There's a lot of useful information, I think, on the website. In addition, the South Carolina Judicial Department has a website. They have the forms there with some explanation of the forms.
Okay.
And again, they can do their own research online. There's a good bit of information online about it.
Okay. And if a viewer has any questions, they don't have access to the internet, what's a good phone number for them to call? Is there a good phone number for the probate administration office or for the judge's office?
Well, in Horry County, we're fortunate in that we have both the main office over in Conway and the new Judicial Center, and we also have 2 satellite offices. We're the only county that has a satellite office other than the main probate court.
Right.
So we have one up in Little River, and then we have the new one down on the south end. But the main number in Conway is 843-915-5370.
Okay.
And we answer questions all the time about marriage licenses, about an estate, what a person needs to bring into the court to open an estate, and things like that.
Sure. You know, recently we've been hearing a lot about living wills. Deirdre, or Judge Edmonds, you know, it's tough to say, Deirdre, you're the Honorable.
Please,
That's
please
right.
call me
Forgive
Deirdre.
me. That's right.
No, not at all.
Folks hear the word living will, and obviously recently there's been a lot about where folks stand and surely life expectancies and otherwise. Living wills come up quite a bit.
They do.
When someone asks you about a living will, I mean, what's an easy way to break that down, and why would someone want one, or would they want one?
Well, the main benefit, I think, of a living will, or what's also called a healthcare power of attorney, it's a little bit different document that people often have, is it allows a person to set forth their wishes and their desires about what they want, what they want in the event that they have a terminal condition, or if they're in some type of persistent vegetative state, whether they want life-sustaining procedures, whether it be some type of respirator, some type of mechanical equipment that would keep them alive, whether they want artificial nutrition, hydration, like we saw recently down in Florida.
Right.
I think the main thing is so that your family will know what you want and that you can make a statement. In the event that you become incapacitated, then you've got something in writing that would set forth your wishes and your desires as to what you would want to happen in those circumstances. So they're very important to have those things.
That would be. You know, it's so fascinating. We had a guest last Monday, Penny Poston, a young woman trying to get a kidney transplant down in Murrells Inlet.
Really?
And she was stressing the aspect of, you know, she may have it on her donor card that I want to donate a kidney, but it's going to be the family's final decision whether or not the kidney's allowed to be donated. So oftentimes, even if someone has a living will, is the family or the personal heirs, is the personal representative going to make a determination, or is that person the individual?
Well, it's up to the actual individual themselves. In South Carolina, if you don't have something in writing where you've designated someone to have possession of your body after your death, and you don't have that set forth already, then your personal it's going to be your next of kin.
Okay.
But the case law is that also your personal representative has some authority to carry out your wishes. One of the things when I was practicing, because I had this issue come up a few times, was the issue of cremation. Who's going to have possession of the person's remains after they pass away? I had a couple cases where there was some conflict there, so I began putting in my wills a statement if a person wanted to be cremated and who was going to make those arrangements, what kind of funeral arrangements the person wanted to make. The problem is oftentimes the person's will not actually be read until after the fact. So that's why it's helpful to go ahead and at a minimum let your family know verbally what you want, and the preferable thing is to have something in writing so that there's no question as to what you wanted under certain circumstances, is to put it in writing yourself.
You know, and these topics can be so difficult for folks in your office, breaking down. I mean, you'll almost become like therapists at some level, because you're saying we want you to talk about the end of your life. We want you to talk to your family about the end of your life. And, of course, some folks are like, I don't want to talk to my children about that. I don't want to get them concerned.
That's right.
I don't want anyone to be worried about me and the end of my life. So that must be difficult at some level for your office as well. Do you all go through training to have...
Well, we don't. You know, in our office, we don't issue these forms. We don't issue the living will, and we don't have the healthcare power of attorney. Those forms are readily available to people through the local libraries, through some of the nonprofit organizations. Those issues come to us when there's a dispute, for the most part, when we're talking about a living will or healthcare power of attorney. And people have to resort to coming to court, unfortunately, when the family is not in agreement, or whether they contest, such as they did down in Florida. So we don't really advise people on when you need a living will, when you need a healthcare power of attorney, in that type of respect.
Okay. You know, recently we've seen, not the proliferation, but we've seen some folks talking about themselves as elder care attorneys or focused on caring for the elderly, and surely some of these issues must come up in categories like that. Are there ways that folks can learn more about elder care and about things that as they get further along in life, so they'll have a better understanding of some of these issues?
Well, I'm a big believer in planning and making sure that you've got your affairs in order to the best of your ability. And one of the things that I try to encourage people is when they're going to sit down and talk with someone about these issues, that it's important to get someone who is really familiar with the issues that they're facing.
Right.
You know, if you've got a person who is elderly, maybe they have a spouse who is in a nursing home, a person who is looking to qualify for some type of governmental benefits, then it pays to go to someone who has experience in that area, such as an elder law attorney.
Right.
Those types of attorneys specialize in elder law, and I think they're good for those situations in which people need that type of referral, that type of counsel. There are a number of different websites. There is a national organization called the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, and they provide some good information both on their website, and there are a number of different elder law attorneys that have question and answer website. Elder Law Answers,
Right.
I think, is a good website that people can go to, and they've got a lot of different information posted there.
ElderLawAnswers.com.
That's right.
That sounds like a
That's
great
right.
location, a place
Yes.
that folks should take the time to visit. Do folks file a will in an office? Do they file a will, let's say, in the probate office, or do they just make sure their family is...
You mean before they pass away?
Correct,
No.
yes.
It used to be in South Carolina that we did allow people to file wills, and we have some very, very old wills
I bet,
that were filed in the probate court. But now the law is in South Carolina that you don't file a will until after a person passes away. So the best thing is for a person to keep that will safe, let their family know that they have the will and where they can find the original. One thing that we see often in the probate court is the family can't find the original will.
Right,
And
sure.
that creates a problem because it's a more difficult procedure. You can probate a copy of a will in South Carolina if you can't find the original, but it's a more complicated procedure. It's what we call a formal procedure, because the presumption is if a person does not have the original will, that you would keep your original will safe.
Right.
And if you can't find the original will, the presumption in the law is that you must have destroyed it if we can't find it at your death. So it's more complicated to probate a copy. So it's extremely important for people to not only have their last will and testament, but to keep the original, keep it in a safe place, and then leave some type of instructions
Let
as to
folks know
where
where
it
it
is.
is.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's exactly right. We even had a couple instances where people would find a will, they would bring it in, we would probate it, and then lo and behold, a month later they would find another will, a more recent will.
Right.
And that even creates a problem for
Oh, that
people.
must, yeah,
It
particularly as you begin to notify heirs.
Yes, it does.
I can't imagine.
Yes. So it's important to not just only have the document, but keep it in a place where your family can find it, but keep it safe as well, because you don't want it to be destroyed without
Right.
your instructions.
We've just got a couple of minutes, and that sounds like a key document. If someone was to ask, what estate planning document should I have, it sounds like a note to heirs of where the estate documents are hidden.
That's a very good thing to have. Not just that, some instructions about where your accounts are, what kind of life insurance policies
Right.
you have, if you have stock certificates, where they are. One of the difficulties that heirs have after a person passes away sometimes is trying to track down assets, trying to find what a person owned, finding the title to the car or the mobile home, things of that nature. So even setting forth some instructions and a listing of assets and what you own and things of that nature is just extremely beneficial to the family.
I'm sure a lot of folks wonder about if life insurance policies that are payable to a beneficiary have to go through probate.
Well, they don't go through probate or anything, but they are reflected on a person's inventory. A personal representative, when they're completing the probate administration, they will file an inventory with the court of all the decedent's assets. And you include not just your probate assets, which would be your home and your automobile, things in your name alone, but you also list any insurance that is maybe payable to the estate, but also any insurance that's payable to a beneficiary. Same thing as an IRA or a annuity, things that may have an individual beneficiary named as the beneficiary. Those are considered non-probate property. They don't pass under a person's will, but we still show them on an inventory. But your personal representative really doesn't have any control over your life insurance unless it's payable to your estate.
Right. As you think back over the last 2.5 years and think back to actually running and making a decision to step out and run for office, which was about 15 years after you'd started your law practice.
That's right.
As you look back over the last 2.5 years, does anything stick in your mind as being the most beneficial aspect of what you've stepped out to do as being probate judge? What's been most...
I think the fact that when I practiced for a little over 15 years before I came probate judge. I did a lot of estate planning, and I just drafted hundreds of wills for people.
Yeah.
I represented people in the probate court in doing guardianships and conservatorship proceedings. I prepared powers of attorney and living wills and healthcare powers. I did some elder law in representing people in dealing with Medicaid and things of that nature. I dealt with trusts. I drafted a lot of trusts for people, and I think that overall experience was just so beneficial to me becoming probate judge. It gave me a wealth of knowledge and experience, and it helped me to do my job certainly better for the people of Horry County.
That's great. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
I enjoyed it very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Judge Deirdre Edmonds coming up next. Take the time to write down that number, 843-915-5370, or you can visit horrycounty.org. That's 843-915-5370. You know, we didn't get to talk about the fun side of the probate courts, the marriage licenses and the thrills that go along with that, your first time or second time or any other time. We didn't get to talk about guardianships and conservatorships, really not a fun side of the probate court. We did get to talk about estate administration. But if you want to learn more, there's a heck of a lot more to the probate courts in Horry County or any other county in the state or even in the Carolinas. Take the time to call this court, 843-915-5370, or go online at horrycounty.org.